You are tuned in to Recovery TV, the voice of hope. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here is your host, John J. Tassoni Jr., with today's guest.
Welcome to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. My guest today is Mr. Bob Holding, and Bob is the Substance Use Mental Health Director in East Greenwich, and a good friend, and been on my radio show a number of times, and I've been on his podcast a number of times. A wealth of knowledge with substances and mental health. So, Bob, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
So, give my viewers a little bit of background about Bob Holding. What you've done in East Greenwich for 120 years, is it?
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Pretty close. All right.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, coming up February, it'll be my 40th year. I'm Bob Holding. I'm the director of the East Greenwich Drug Program. I have two halves of a full-time job. One half of what I do a lot of prevention, education, community development, running after-school clubs and activities. On the other half of what I do is I assess and refer individuals who are struggling with mental health concerns, people who have substance-related issues. I do a lot of aftercare. So in many ways, I have two halves of a full-time job. My job came about in 1983 after a tragic accident where a young boy by the name of Todd Morsilli was struck and killed by an East Greenwich student driving a car while she was intoxicated. And I've been here ever since.
So, what you do in East Greenwich, 40 years, you said?
40 years.
40 years. And you're well known across the state for what you do. Give me your thoughts on what's going to transpire in 2022 with legalization of marijuana and your job on top of it.
Yeah, that's a major, major concern. On the one hand, I think many of us are happy that marijuana to some extent has been decriminalized due to the fact that the war on drugs was harsh on some populations. I also think that some of the advancements it made, maybe looking at some places where marijuana could be used in medicinal means, okay, that's worth looking at. The recreation dynamic is very, very frightening for a number of reasons. The messages it sends to young people, how are we going to factor into that to highway safety? One of the real concerns I have right now with some of the legislation that's coming out is that they're going to throw money at a problem. And again, while I think it's great that they've expunged some records or they're looking to expunge records and support minority populations, I'm not too crazy about putting your children or your grandchildren at risk for money purposes. I think there's a lot of additional things that we have to look at. It's going to make my job a little bit more difficult. It's going to make police officers' jobs a little bit more difficult. And I also think it's going to send some real interesting mixed messages to young people. So yeah, we're going to have a lot of work to do. I think there's going to be some hidden problems that are going to, it won't be the panacea that some people are claiming it's going to be.
Right. And the other thing too is when you legalize a substance, there's a long-term effect to this. And you don't really know what the long-term effect is until you start going down that road. You look at Colorado and you look at some of the other places that legalize, the insurances are higher, there's more road accidents, there's been more emergency room visits. So who pays for that?
Absolutely.
There's really no funding in restricted receipt accounts to help pay for that. It all goes into the state budget. And that's a concern because other organizations that could use monies, that get monies, that money may not be there in the future because of treatment, education, and prevention. You look in Massachusetts, I was just over the line in Fall River a few weeks ago. Big billboard, to buy marijuana. Are they going to allow that in Rhode Island?
You know, another huge concern I have, we're in the midst of a mental health crisis.
Right.
We're in the midst of an opioid crisis. And what do some of our leaders decide to do? Extend happy hour and push for marijuana legalization. And I think that when people are saying, I gotta go home and smoke a joint because it'll take off some of the pressure, or begin to use that as a way of assuaging some of their mental health conditions.
Right.
Again, that's another concern, and these are people who are gonna be going out to our restaurants, driving our cars, who are gonna be asked to function in our population. That's pretty concerning.
Yeah, and you got all these things in a pot where they think the legislators, all this money is going to come into the state, but they fail to realize that the black market is going to soar because you don't want to pay any more taxes, nor do I want to pay any more taxes. And you look at the legislation, there's around 20 to 30% tax on the pot. I mean, come on.
Exactly.
So who is going to want to buy something that's taxed at 30% or 25%, where you can go on the street and there's no tax, and God knows what's in it today.
Yeah.
You don't know what's in it. I mean, just like the opioid crisis. Now we're hearing fentanyl they're putting in with marijuana.
Well, the other thing, and everybody knows this, the marijuana that was being smoked 30 years ago is not the same marijuana that's being smoked today.
Correct.
So there's a potential that people are minimizing the potency, where in many instances it's 6, 8, 10 times even more strong, and they're recreating on it. And I think that, again, another thing that we alluded to a little bit earlier are the hidden costs.
Right.
How are you going to factor in how that's going to impact your fire departments, your police departments, your mental health services in a community? How's that going to impact your student assistance people in the school? I think there's going to, on the one hand, while they're looking at money and some of the benefits, I don't think they're factoring in some of the residual problems that are going to come along.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, let me ask you a question about East Greenwich. What kind of programs do you run for kids? You said something earlier about after-school programs. What kind of programs do you run?
Well, John, we all know that substance abuse doesn't occur in a vacuum. And many times, if you wait till kids are in the middle school or in the high school, sometimes you're out of the barn. So we try to do a number of programs. As a matter of fact, COVID has exacerbated a lot of mental health conditions, substance-related conditions. So we're in the process right now of creating elementary grade programs about how to handle mental health, how to talk about mental health, how to handle stress. And it's called Be Smart. It's a long acronym. And I think that one of the things we need to look at is going back, and a long time ago we used to think about, treatment programs for kids. When back in the days of Edge Hill, High Point, and Good Hope, it's hard to rehabilitate somebody who wasn't habilitated. So we're literally trying to give people rudimentary skills that can help them cope. And then we have a myriad of clubs at the high school.
All right, I want to talk about that when we come back from break. You've been watching and listening to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Bob Hodling has been my guest today. We'll be right back after this.
You know, every week I work in stadiums filled with thousands and talk to thousands more on the radio, which means people who come from every walk of life. And I know that many, like my own family, have grieved over loved ones caught in the grip of addiction. 8 years ago, we lost my nephew to an overdose. But I've also seen in friends and even fans who've shared their stories, others break that hold and regain control of their lives. You can do the same. Please know you're not alone.
The Parent Support Network is committed to supporting and assisting peers. Together, they're working with statewide and national partners to empower children, families, and individuals through dynamic supports, education, and advocacy to prevent abuse and neglect and progress toward universal health, wellness, and recovery. A location is near you. Child and Family Visitation and Training Center in Warwick, Hope Recovery Community Center in Middletown, Hope Recovery Community Center of Washington County in Westerly, or online at psnri.org.
Treatment is often far more successful when individuals are offered both medication and behavioral therapy. Kodak Behavioral Health Care is Rhode Island's largest, only nonprofit, outpatient provider of care for opioid use disorder.
Our compassionate clinicians deliver the highest level of care for patients.
Through Kodak's medication-assisted treatment program, patients are prescribed methadone, buprenorphine, Suboxone, and naltrexone. For a confidential conversation, call Kodak.
Local 57 Operating Engineers is Rhode Island's source for professional heavy equipment operators. For the last 120 years, Local 57 members have worked on all of Rhode Island's major construction projects, including buildings, roads, and bridges. If you're looking for professionally trained and licensed operators to run your excavators, loaders, cranes, or any other type of construction equipment, give us a call at 421-6678. If you're an experienced heavy equipment operator and would like to join our team, give us a call.
The Rhode Island Department of Health reports that drug overdose death is the #1 cause of accidental death in our state. Zinnia Exeter is committed to helping overcome addiction and the silent epidemic of drug overdose. Our substance abuse completion rates are over 25% higher than the national average. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, call Zinnia Exeter to learn about treatment options.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. My guest today is Mr. Bob Hodling, and he is the guru in East Greenwich on substance use and mental health. He's been over there for 40 years. 40 years, and you don't look a day over 39. Exactly. I don't get it. I don't get it. So we were talking earlier, the clubs and what you do after school programs. So can you get on that again?
All right. So as I stated previously, we do a lot of work with the elementary kids, character ed, establishing relationships, getting kids to trust you. Because let's face it, when you get stuck with the moniker of drug counselor, drug program director, that's not something that kids want to go running to.
Right.
So if they see you as Mr. Bob, or if they see you as an avuncular character at a younger age, and you're working with their parents, there's an advantage. At the middle school and the high school, we do a number of clubs, youth clubs, ASAP clubs, which are just mental health advocacy. We have an ASAP Junior club, an ASAP 2 club in the middle school. And then on top of that, we create just a lot of opportunities like philosophy clubs, team of teens, places in many ways that are all the same club. They give teenagers an opportunity to gather. I think another thing too, just to develop naturally. We spend so much time in cyberspace to create opportunities for kids to interact with each other, shoot the breeze, hang out, have fun, and then tackle some of those issues. That's huge. We're planning on creating this thing called the ASAP Cafe, which is more or less going to be once a month. It's going to be a hangout, almost like a coffee shop, where kids can come and hang out and just chill and be kids. I think that the pace of the world's a little bit quick right now, and if we can find more ways to reestablish normal development, that's what we're trying to do.
So your counterparts in other areas of the state, because I don't want to focus on East Greenwich because it wouldn't be fair, what are they seeing out there? Are they seeing a lot of alcohol use? Are they seeing more marijuana use? Are they seeing more opioid use?
Yeah, John, I think right off the bat, you're hearing a lot of mental health issues and concerns, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. In an attempt to ameliorate that, what people are doing many times, alcohol, it's huge. There was a lot of isolated drinking during the time of COVID. Marijuana now, because we've underestimated it and we've made it socially acceptable, there's a lot of people who talk about marijuana use. And then vaping products. Vaping products have become a pretty big thing. In our community, and I can't attest for what's going on in all other communities, the opioid issues and the pill issues start to present themselves probably in the early 20s, and then they lead to fatalities and fentanyl. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that we've cultivated an atmosphere that you need an outside agent to curb your anxiety. So kids grow up thinking they need alcohol, they need marijuana, they need a pill, and then unfortunately that develops into opioid addiction sometimes later on.
Yeah, and I think you see also the parents with anxiety, more alcohol in the homes, more use in the homes, stress in the homes. You know, I mean, this is going to air sometimes at the beginning of May, and we have a war going on right now. So a lot of anxiety. A lot of people are on edge, you know. And you look at students. You know, now the face masks are going to come off. We're trying to get back to the norm. And I say that loosely. And kids today, they would like to experiment. You know, and they see medical marijuana, so they think it's okay to smoke the regular marijuana because it's medical.
Yep.
But as we know, it's not medical. And the marijuana today is not like the marijuana when we were kids.
Yep.
You know, it's a lot different. The THC levels are through the roof. There's always experimenting on trying to get the next percentage up,
Yeah.
and to make it to where it is. So my question to you would be, go back 40 years.
Boy, would I like to do that.
Tell me from 40 years ago when you first got into this business to where it is today. What do you think the range of problems has gone? Has it gone like a NASCAR race? Has it gone to a horse race? Where do you see that?
That's a great question. You know, when I first came to East Greenwich, the predominant issues were unsupervised teenage drinking parties out in the woods where parents would go away. There was some marijuana. Every once in a while what would present itself, whether or not the Grateful Dead came into URI and somebody was acid, LSD was a bomb.
Right.
Then there was a cocaine period of time in the late 80s, early 90s. But most of the substance-related concerns were alcohol, a significant amount of alcohol. I think the biggest changes that have occurred in maybe the last 20 years, the prescription meds have become a major concern. I think the other thing is the mental health disorders that are brought on by pace of living. I think that us going into a lot of cyberspace, people not in the same form of communication as they always have, inordinate amount of pressure on kids, and erosion of social emotional skills have added to a dynamic where mental health, prescription, it's almost been a perfect storm of kids not having some of the same resiliency skills. So I think the biggest thing now are dual disorders or dual conditions. And I think in some ways we actually fan the flames by creating dynamics where we add pressure to kids, where, you know, look at how we're marketing marijuana now. Look at some of the pressure we put on kids in schools. So we've almost created a cottage industry of stress for kids.
We're going to take a quick break. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I've been your host, John Tassoni, here with Bob Holdling from East Greenwich, and we'll be right back after this.
I think when you're actively struggling with an addiction, you don't realize the harm that it's causing to the people in your circle, in your family, and your friends. You know, by quitting and getting help, I was able to heal a lot of relationships that were damaged, and you find that people come back to you. Someone used to say to me that it's darkest just before dawn. So if you think that you've gone too far, it's not true. No matter what problems you have, your life can get better if you get help.
I started getting in trouble when I was really young. I was bringing knives to school in the 3rd grade. I started hanging out with the wrong crowds. I envisioned that if I wasn't dead by 26, I'd be in jail. I never had plans past that. Tides give me the opportunity to start a new life fresh. So now to be 28 with 4 children, married, manage this restaurant, living in a house, it's a miracle. Life is incredible, and Tides is who I have to thank for that.
Addiction Recovery Institute, with locations in Pawtucket and Warwick, have been the leaders in treatment of opioid use disorder since 1993. Addiction Recovery Institute offers same-day admission, no waiting list. Services include medicated assisted treatment, detoxification, and substance counseling, always providing care to those who are most in need with dignity and respect. For more information, visit methadone.com.
Alcohol and drug addiction, depression, anxiety, PTSD, they can all seem overwhelming, but you don't have to face them alone. At Trinity Village, we are committed to providing addiction treatment that works. We specialize in offering integrated care for co-occurring mental and substance use disorders. We offer cutting-edge medicated assisted treatment and medication management. We are now offering virtual care to get the treatment you need from the comfort of your home. If you or someone you love needs help, call or visit us online at trinityvillage.org.
With these,
and this,
with my mouth shut,
and my ears wide open.
It means that from the moment you walk into the room,
You're the most important patient to me.
East Bay Recovery Center in Warren connects people in recovery to the supports and activities that make long-term recovery a reality. People with lived experience work to engage individuals and serve as a guide for new recoveries. The Peer Recovery Specialist's aim is to engage high-risk individuals being served in the community to vital treatment and services and follow-up to ensure the connection to treatment and services is maintained. For more information, visit ebcap.org or call 302-6231.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We have two new members. We have Coco and Chanel, and we have Bob Holding from East Greenwich. So we got the three dogs here. So Bob, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
I got third billing under the dog.
So let's talk a little bit about the marijuana and what's going on with the marijuana. And my dogs here are very interested in listening to you about your marijuana.
That is awesome. Hey guys, how are you today? It's good to see you.
Bob.
Yeah, John, I just think just to follow up on a few things that we have spoken about up until now is cultural norms have changed. And I think that when you do things like that, it's funny. I think there was an era that in the 60s and 70s, people would do drugs to rebel in many instances, or as a marker, a demarcation of growing up and independence. I think a lot of that's transitioned where people used to do drugs to rebel to a point now where many people are doing them to conform. Did you ever think that marijuana people would be using it to calm their nerves or as a way of assuaging some type of a mental health dynamic? And that's very, very confusing and concerning for me. And not that I'm condoning rebellious type substance use, not at all, but that was seen as a form of communication, gathering, Woodstock parties, where now there's a lot of isolated substance use, which coincides with some mental health dynamics, and that's very scary.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you for joining us today, and my two buddies here will take your information and take it back to Smithfield, and we'll talk about it. But one of the things too, I want to let my listeners know, and the viewers, take care of your pets. Make sure you bring them inside in the winter. Make sure they have food, water, and most of all, make sure you take them to the vet to make sure they get their inoculations. So, Bob, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Recovery TV. I'm your host, John Tassoni. There is hope in recovery, and we'll see you next week. Right, guys? Right. See you next week.
My first experience with addiction was actually with a family member. And I was very young at the time. I didn't really understand everything that was going on, but I knew that it really rocked my family to the core. Now, thank God that family member got the help that they needed. Sometimes you get yourself backed into a corner and feel like you've got to do it alone, but I think it's important for those people that are in that situation right now in their lives to understand they don't have to do it alone. You know, you can make it through this, you can get back on track.
If you or someone you know is struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, the members of Horizon Healthcare Partners are here to help. Kodak, Community Care Alliance, Newport Mental Health, Thrive Behavioral Health, and Tides Family Services serve the behavioral health needs of all Rhode Islanders. We also operate BH Link, the state's 24/7 behavioral health emergency center. For help, call the 24/7 hotline at 401-414-LINK. For more information, visit Horizon Healthcare Partners at hhpartners.org.
Anchor Recovery has been a mainstay since 2010 and was the first recovery community center in the state. Anchor Recovery has grown from just a couple of 12-step meetings to an entire cadre of meetings supporting multiple pathways of recovery. Today, we support medicated assisted treatment, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and physical aspects of recovery. Easy access in 3 locations. Learn about how recovery can help you. Different paths, same destination. Stop in, call, or visit anchorrecovery.providencecenter.org.
Serving the community for more than 30 years, 3 generations of our family at Wesco Oil have been providing reliable comfort to your home.
From oil delivery to installation and service, you can trust us to maintain your heating and cooling systems year-round. Visit us at bewarm.com to choose an option that best meets your needs. Be cool or be warm. We've got you covered. Honest service at a competitive price. Wesco Oil Company.
Sometimes everyone can use a helping hand. At Tri-County Community Action Agency, we offer support services when you need it the most. From food and heating assistance to family health and dental care, we have programs to lend a helping hand throughout the whole life cycle. From grandkids to grandmas, individuals or families. If you or someone you know could use a helping hand, visit our website at tricountryri.org to learn more about the many services we provide. We know it isn't easy to ask for help. At Tri-County, we are here when you need us. For more information, visit tricountryri.org or call 401-351-2750.
If you're struggling with addiction to pain pills or heroin, it's time to call Groups Recover Together. Groups will get you the medicine you need to feel better.
When I took Suboxone, I felt just like able to function, no sickness, no, anxious feeling.
And will give you the support you need to build the life worth being sober for. The time commitment is minimal, just 1 hour a week. You can meet with us in person or virtually. Call now to get started.
The Rhode Island Department of Health reports that drug overdose death is the #1 cause of accidental death in our state. Zinnia Exeter is committed to helping overcome addiction and the silent epidemic of drug overdose. Our substance abuse completion rates are over 25% higher than the national average. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, call Zinnia Exeter to learn about treatment options.
Tune in every weekend for a new edition of Recovery TV. Host John J. Tassoni Jr. discusses information on addiction and mental health issues with local leaders in today's recovery world. Tune in Saturday evenings on MyRI TV or Sunday mornings on CW Providence or Fox Providence.